Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Don't Call Me Martha. Let's make cinnamon rolls.
Today we're going to make cinnamon rolls. To start with, we need to scald the milk.
Cinnamon roll!
We put 4 cups of milk into a pan and put it on the heat. You want it to warm up until you see little tiny bubbles around the outside edge, but you don't want it to boil. You can see that it's steaming a little bit and there's little bubbles forming around the edges of the pan. You want to keep stirring it just once in a while to make sure it doesn't burn onto the bottom of the pan. And this is just about ready. Okay, we've got 7 tablespoons of sugar. That's a half a cup minus a tablespoon. And we're going to throw in 1 whole square of butter. It's a 1/4 pound or half a cup, however you want to measure it. We've cut it up into small pieces so it'll melt faster. Now we pour our scalded milk on top of the butter and sugar, and it'll melt that butter. And we add 1 tablespoon of salt. You can see the butter's melting. Okay, when it's cooled down to where you can stick your finger in it, then add 2 beaten eggs. Dump it in. And a packet of yeast. Or if you don't have a packet, we have ours in a jar. A packet is about 2 1/4 teaspoons. And stir it in. Now that our milk has cooled, the butter's melted, the sugar and salt and yeast are all in there, and the eggs, now we start adding our flour. This recipe takes about 12 cups of flour, so scoop in about 4 and then stir. And then keep adding it until it's a thick dough and it's time to start kneading. Okay, we've got about 8 cups of flour in there, and you can see we're stirring it up. You want to kind of beat it with your spoon until it's fairly smooth, and then add the remaining flour. Okay, we've got about 11 cups of flour in here, and you can see it's still a bit sticky. It was getting too hard to stir with the spoon, so I am using my fingers. Don't be afraid to get your fingers in there. You might want to take off any jewelry you're wearing. You don't want that 3-carat diamond ring covered up with dough. So we're going to add about half of the last cup of flour, and hopefully that'll get it unsticky enough to knead. Okay, put some flour down on your countertop. It's pretty heavy right now because this is a really soft dough still, and it'll eventually soak that all up. And then just lump your dough out here. Try to get as much as you can out of the bowl and start to knead. And if you're trying to get the dough off your fingers, just kind of rub it off with some flour. And you want to knead it until the dough is elastic and smooth. And that'll take, about 10 minutes. So if you fold it, push it down, turn it, fold it, push it down. Now as we've been kneading, when it gets a little sticky, we put a little more of the flour on the board so it doesn't stick, and that's what we used the remainder of that 12th cup of flour for. When it's starting to feel real springy and elastic and smooth, you know it's ready. So fold it under, pour a little bit of oil into your bowl after you've washed it, about a tablespoon in there. When we made pizza crust, we used extra virgin olive oil. I don't recommend that because unless you like olive flavored cinnamon buns. So I used canola oil, or you can use corn oil or something like that. Even a little melted butter would work. Take your glob of dough, put it in upside down, smear it around until it's got good and oiled, and then flip it over until the whole surface is covered with oil and the bowl is nice and well oiled. Then we cover it with plastic wrap and we let it sit till the dough is doubled, about 1.5 hours to 2 hours. Okay, you can see that our dough has risen to double the size, so we take our plastic off and we'll just dump it out here onto a clean cutting board. Thank you. Now, we're going to roll this out into 2 separate amounts because our cutting board is just not big enough to roll it out in one. So we'll cut it in half. Just a butter knife there will do it. And we'll throw half of it back into the pan. Cover it up with the, okay, go ahead. Roll it out into a big rectangle. So You can see we've lined our pan with paper, or you can just butter a pan, your choice. Stop. Then you want to roll it out into a rectangle. Once you have your dough rolled out, it's about, probably about 12 inches by about 16 or 18. Smear on some butter, and I usually use 2 to 3 tablespoons of softened butter, and you just put a nice even coat on your dough like that. Then you'll mix together your cinnamon and sugar, about a 1/4 cup of brown sugar, and about a teaspoon of cinnamon, and sprinkle that on top. And sprinkle the sugar on, the sugar and cinnamon mix on evenly. And again, this is a 1/4 cup with a teaspoon of cinnamon, but that's only for a 1/4 of the amount of dough. Now you can always make a smaller amount of dough, but I figure if you're going to make dough and go through all the trouble of kneading it and everything, you may as well make a big batch. You can always put these in the freezer. You can freeze them before they raise the second time, so as soon as you put them in the pan right now, you could throw them in the freezer with plastic wrap on them. Or you could let them raise and throw them in the freezer. If you put them in the freezer before you let them raise, then you're going to want to take them out and let them sit for about a day before you bake them. If you raise them before you put them in the freezer, then you don't have to let them sit out for quite so long. A couple of hours until they've thawed out enough to go in the oven. Okay, so roll it up. You gonna help me there? You can kind of tuck this in so it stays in a nice roll instead of, there you go. Most of your recipes will say to pinch this edge shut, and you can if you like, but it doesn't really usually stay shut, so there's, in my opinion, there's no point. Now you're gonna want to cut your rolls about 1 inch to 1.5 inches thick. Yeah, go ahead. And then stick them in your pan and saw them. Don't just push down, but saw. Yep, just like that. You can see these are tucked in pretty tight because we didn't want to have to get another pan. We could have done it in, say, that many of them in this pan and then a few of them in a smaller pan, but we didn't want to bother with that. And that's okay because instead of spreading out, these will spread up.
Yeah, because they'll get taller.
And they're really swirly.
Yeah, look at all the swirls.
Here they are, ready to go into the oven. Here they are, just out of the oven. You can tell they're done because they sound hollow when you tap on them. Sounds like someone knocking on the door. After they cool, you can put a glaze on them, either just a plain buttercream frosting or a glaze made out of brown or powdered sugar and milk.
All right, good morning. Well, Aunt Martha slept in this morning, so she left the task of making the buttercream frosting to her able men in the family.
Able men.
So we're starting this morning with about a half recipe of the normal butter frosting. We have 3 tablespoons of butter, which we're going to put in our bowl.
That's why it's called butter frosting.
And we're going to cream. So. Then we're going to add about half our sugar. Then we need to add our vanilla for our half recipe. That's 3/4 of a teaspoon. Half is plenty for the amount of rolls we're doing this morning. Okay, there's 3/4 of a cup of, a teaspoon of vanilla. And we're going to do a tablespoon of milk or light cream to start. Okay, gradually add in the remaining sugar. So we're going to keep on blending. So now you can see the frosting is just about peaked, kind of like a cream. Notice the lack of finesse that Not Martha exhibits. That we men exhibit compared to Not Martha. This is the brute force, I'm hungry method of getting our cinnamon rolls ready to eat.
Frosting.
Lots of frosting. Good on there. Good, good, good. And we're going to do one wild and crazy thing. Yummy frosting. Enjoy your cinnamon rolls. Okay.
See more of Not Martha's videos at idon'tcallmemartha.blogspot.com.